Imagine a person who starts to panic hearing the fireworks outside. Well, many people would think, what a crazier, what's wrong with him or her? But the truth is that that person probably not only has gone through many traumatic experiences, but also her or his nerve system doesn't work correctly. My name's Olivia, and today I'm gonna show you how much the nerve system and also our minds are connected to each other, and also why so many people are prone to illnesses like depression or PTSD. Professor Richard Davidson, in his book called Brain's Emotional Life, or Emotional Brain's Life, I'm not quite sure how to translate the title because I've got it in Polish, mentions 6 emotional styles. Endurance, which means how quickly we get up after a failure. Attitude, which means how long we're gonna keep up the positive emotions. Social intuition, which means how well we're able to read the social signals which are given by the people around us. Self-awareness, which means how well we notice the physiological sensations which are like the reflection of emotions. The context sensitivity, which means how well we're able to regulate our emotional reactions in view of the context of some situation. And also the final one, attention, which means how strongly we are able to focus on something. The first one is the amygdala, which is responsible for the emotional memory, emotional reaction and stuff like that. And also the prefrontal cortex, and the right one gets active when we feel the negative emotions, and the left one gets active when we feel the positive emotions. And it was proven through an experiment where the people were watching different TV shows, and the ones who were watching the positive ones and were smiling and felt just so well, so nicely during watching it, their left prefrontal cortex got active. And those things I'm talking about in this vlog got proven through many experiments, many different tests. For example, the EEG test, which shows the brain waves, and also the MRI, which shows very detailed parts of our body. These are very detailed scans, so you can see everything well, including, for example, brain and different parts of it. So the organs I've mentioned take very important part in reacting, and in this case I mean the nerve system reaction, but also through the whole process to diagnose, for example, the depression or the PTSD. So let's start with the endurance. A person with lower endurance has the left prefrontal cortex less active, but the prefrontal cortex is supposed to make the amygdala active for a shorter amount of time. Because it doesn't work correctly, the amygdala stays active for a kinda longer amount of time. So when you've got some very unnice situation, you are upset after it for the longer amount of time. Your brain needs some time to get back the balance. Also, a person with the lower endurance has a lower amount of the white matter between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. And sadly, because of that, there are like less connections between them. And right now, let me explain it. So, if there is the low activity in the fusiform gyrus, and which is responsible for like recognizing faces, especially to like make a person recognize if, for example, somebody is angry or sad. So when you've got problems with this, you can't really recognize if the second person is, for example, mad. But well, if there's less activity in this part of body, and also like there's the big level of activity in the amygdala, then this kind of person is kind of disoriented. What I mean by disoriented? Well, as I've said, it's hard to tell if the second person standing right next to you is, for example, angry, but also the very active amygdala makes you like very alerted. It makes you like react with just so much fear on something. For example, just a simple sound which wouldn't be treated like a danger by a person who doesn't have such problems. And this is why the kids with autism may like panic hearing something which we don't treat like a danger. So the hippocampus, which is like responsible for our memory, takes also a big part in like recognizing the context of some situation. And well, what is the PTSD? For example, there's a soldier with PTSD and he hears like many explosions during the war, and later he gets back home and hears fireworks, and then he starts to panic. Why? Because they like remind him of the traumatic experiences. But the first thing is that a person with these problems, there's proven that such person has like the smaller hippocampus. Also, which is very important, the hippocampus like stays in touch with the prefrontal cortex. The stronger are the connections, the bigger is like the sensitivity of the context. And well, such people really need therapy, but also they need our understanding. We absolutely shouldn't laugh when somebody like panics hearing the fireworks, because we don't really know what that person has been through, right? So right now I'm talking a little bit about the insula, and well, it's a part of your brain which gets the signals from the inner organs. However, if the level of activity is small, then it means the small self-awareness. So, the people with very strong fear or even phobia, let's say, have like the kinda low activity of insula. A good way to treat it is the cognitive behavioral therapy, which is personally my favorite one. Do you know what's the huge problem of people with depression? Well, not only they have less motivation, but sadly they are not able to feel happy as long as people which are healthy. Why this even takes place? So, the prefrontal cortex and the nucleus accumbens in the ventral striatum create something like reward areas in brain. The nucleus accumbens contains neurons which may release or, for example, pick up the dopamine. So, dopamine is responsible for things like emotions and motivations. And do you remember when I said about the lower activity of the prefrontal cortex, the left prefrontal cortex in a person with depression? The smaller amount of signals from it causes like the lower level of activity in the ventral striatum, and because of that a person has like the negative attitude. So we've got left attention, and well, the big part takes the prefrontal cortex, which like strengthens signals important for us, and also it weakens the signals which are less important to us. Thanks to the prefrontal cortex, we can keep up the concentration. The prefrontal cortex, along with the parietal cortex, creates the selective attention system. If the selective attention system gets like more active, then we've got like the better opportunity to focus on something. So right now let's answer the important questions. So if somebody's left prefrontal cortex is like less active, then does it mean that this person is going to struggle with depression for the rest of his life? Well, absolutely no. The nerve system is plastic, and well, a good therapy along with exercises can help like change your brain to make it function better. I always call it reprogramming. So, the knowledge I've shared here is based on Professor Richard Davidson's book, which I mentioned on the very beginning, and also on Dr. Norman Doidge's many books, which I've already read, and well, I'm a big fan of them. And there are like many books of neuroplasticity where you can find many important information about how to reprogram brain, or to find many exercises. I highly recommend reading them because they are really good. So if you've got questions, you can leave them in the comment section, and also please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next psychological vlogs, and maybe also the neurobiological vlogs, who knows? So I also would like to ask you to share this vlog because maybe it will help many people. If you haven't joined my action called There's Always Hope, you can do so by, for example, sharing like a motivational story written by you, or for example take a motivational picture, or make for example a motivational video. Just add the hashtag There's Always Hope to the title so it makes it easier to find. See ya in the next vlogs. Bye!